He's the new leading man in news-related comedy. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 John Oliver moments on Last Week Tonight.
The entire Chechen Republic was put on notice this week because its leader couldn't find his cat.
For this list, we'll be examining the segments and features that have helped turn John Oliver and his show into a viral internet phenomenon. We'll be focusing on the entertainment of the pieces, as well as their impact.
Don't use our song, 'cause you use it wrong. It might seem appealing, but you're just stealing.
Number 10, Dr. Oz and dietary supplements.
But on Capitol Hill Tuesday, he was on the hot seat.
Excuse me, but any seat Dr. Oz is sitting on is the hot seat.
One of the standout moments of Last Week Tonight's first season is this segment on Dr. Oz, an accredited doctor whose hit show is considered by many in the medical community as a modern-day version of a traveling snake oil salesman.
Have I got something miraculous for you, ladies and gentlemen? A monkey's paw mixed with 5 petals of a rose and a thimble full of otter semen. Guaranteed to cure your lumbago. Step right up here.
John Oliver covers the doctor's Senate hearing, as well as Dr. Oz's use of his profession to legitimize unproven products. However, the deeper focus of this editorial is the lack of regulation concerning dietary supplements, which is the result of the unbelievably legal practice of lobbying.
Dr. Oz is just a symptom of the problem. The disease is the fact that dietary supplements in the US are shockingly unregulated.
Oliver tops the segment off by schooling Dr. Oz and the supplement industry at their own game by showing them how to pander properly, complete with puppies, t-shirts, celebrities, music, and dancing.
And guess what? Here's Steve Buscemi tap dancing.
Number 9, tobacco.
Is this the best time ever to be a tobacco farmer?
Probably the most profitable.
Wow. So it's an aging product that's decreasing in popularity, and yet somehow it just can't stop making money. It's basically the agricultural equivalent of U2.
Despite its sharp decline in popularity in America, the tobacco industry continues to be profitable thanks to emerging markets overseas. Last Week Tonight covers that subject, emphasizing tobacco companies' litigation against any attempts to mitigate the marketing of their deadly products, such as the plain packaging laws in Australia, as well as poorer countries such as Uruguay or Togo, who cannot afford expensive court cases.
And when your GDP is only a couple of billion more than the box office of Avatar, a protracted legal case is not really what you need.
The biggest impact of the segment, though, is the introduction of Jeff, the diseased lung in a cowboy hat, a mascot parodying the Marlboro Man.
We are offering Jeff to you, Philip Morris International, to use as you wish.
The show sent Jeff t-shirts to Togo and put up billboards in Uruguay. Plus, Jeff appears whenever you do an image search for Marlboro on Google.
Jeff! It's Jeff, everyone! It's Jeff, the diseased lung!
Number 8, sex education.
The conversation that animals in zoos refuse to let you not have.
In this piece, Oliver looks at the state of sex education in the United States, with particular attention given to its inconsistency.
There is no required standard for sex ed in this country. In fact, only 22 states mandate that kids receive it, and only 13 require that the information presented be medically accurate.
Sex and sexuality are something most people will have to deal with at some point in their lives, and Oliver points out the absurdity in America's varying approaches to the subject, which can range from genuinely informative to downright backwards.
Those are the things we do not want to be taught in our schools. Those are things that should be taught in your home.
Wait, taught in your home? Here is an exchange that has never happened. How are you so good at sex? I was homeschooled.
The editorial concludes with a simple, direct look at sex education, parodying the less-than-accurate sex ed videos showcased earlier, narrated by celebrities, of course. This segment is an excellent example of Last Week Tonight's tendency to highlight social or governmental issues that could use some improvement, and doing it in a way that's enlightening and entertaining.
If you get a chance to have sex with this man, go for it.
Number 7, televangelists.
Churches, America's favourite place for redemption and 6th favourite place for chicken.
While it may be hard to believe that they're still around, the show's spotlight on televangelists reveals that they remain fixtures of television, and really wealthy ones at that.
I had enough money to buy a beautiful Cessna Citation jet, cash.
I bought a jet, cash. I bought a bigger jet, cash. F*** the haters, act happy for me. That's not a sermon, it's the first draft of a Rick Ross single.
Oliver highlights the practices used by TV preachers to get rich, with particular emphasis on seed faith, which is essentially asking people for money and promising good karma in return.
As an investment, you'd be better off burying your money in the actual ground, because at least that way there is a chance your dog may dig it up and give it back to you one day. Good boy.
He also illustrates the gaping tax loopholes that allow televangelists to get away with their verbal robbery, culminating with a demonstration of the process with the creation of his own short-lived real church, Our Lady of Perpetual Exemption. The church did have to close down after people got a little too literal with the seed metaphor.
We are also not closing down because you kept sending us actual seeds, even though we explicitly told you not to.
Number 6. 2015 Canadian federal election.
Canada. The country you think about so little, that's it, end of sentence.
Originally airing the literal night before the election was due to take place, this segment focused on explaining the electoral process, while also sharing a few hilarious scandals, and detailing the major nominees for Canada's 3 major political parties.
Look, no one is saying that is behaviour worthy of a head of state, but you cannot deny that it is somewhat satisfying to watch a soul-patched man named Justin with a French accent just fall down some stairs.
Oliver pays particular attention to the then-incumbent Stephen Harper, whom he calls banal but technically evil.
Tobacco is a product that does a lot of damage. Marijuana is infinitely worse.
Are you high?
The crowning jewel of the proceedings, however, is Oliver's response to the law forbidding non-Canadians from trying to influence their elections.
That is a ridiculous law, and I guess what you're saying, Canada, is you want to dance?
What follows is an over-the-top request not to vote for Harper, accompanied by music, pantomime animals, and Mike Myers dressed as a Mountie riding a snowplow.
I love Canada, but the fact that it has a law banning outsiders from telling Canadians how to vote is one of the least Canadian things possible.
Sure.
Oh, and don't vote for Stephen Harper.
Exactly.
Number 5. U.S. presidential scandals.
The 2016 presidential election, or as it's more commonly known, the electoral equivalent of seeing someone puking, so you start puking and then someone else is puking, and pretty soon everyone is puking 2016.
The U.S. presidential election dominated the news for at least a year, and the 2 candidates' major scandals are examined here in great detail.
This campaign, the scandals have been so pronounced. Polls show that less than half the electorate sees either candidate as honest or trustworthy.
Oliver pays particular attention to Hillary Clinton's scandals, namely her email server and the Clinton Foundation controversy, explaining the complicated details in an understandable and funny way. He then contrasts Clinton's wrongdoings with Donald Trump's, mentioning that over 50% of the Republicans' statements were found to be false by PolitiFact, and suggesting that he's committed far worse, far more often, and with significantly less scrutiny than Clinton.
If you're irritated by her lying, that is understandable, but he's quantifiably worse.
Oliver finishes the piece off by using an incredibly effective visual demonstration of the difference between the candidates, arguing that while Clinton has more scandals than someone should, they're nowhere near as many as Trump's.
And Hillary is a cookie like this one. She arguably has more raisins than average. But we all need to remember that when it comes to Donald Trump, this is the amount of raisins that he represents. The man is a raisin monsoon.
Number 4. 2015 FIFA corruption case.
The World Cup is one of my favourite things, but it's organised by these guys. FIFA.
Few subjects have received as many segments devoted to it on Last Week Tonight's first few seasons as FIFA, the organization in charge of international football, and the corruption charges against its officials.
And we have to remain a non-profit organization.
A non-profit with over $1 billion in the bank.
Yeah, but this is a reserve.
A reserve? A reserve of $1 billion.
John Oliver's passion for the sport is really evident throughout all of the coverage, and the various pieces are easily some of the best the show has ever put on. Some of the highlights include Oliver promising to endorse products he finds gross or tacky if their companies pull their sponsorships from FIFA, which he delivers on, by the way, and his memorable feud with former FIFA Vice President Jack Warner, which included purchased airtime on Trinidad TV and an announcement accompanied by dramatic music and jets of fire.
You have magnificent music under yours. Well played. Well, I see your music choice and I raise you fire.
Number 3. Government surveillance.
And I realise most people would rather have a conversation about literally any other topic, including, is my smartphone giving me cancer, to which the answer is probably, or do goldfish suffer from depression, to which the answer is yes, but very briefly.
The focus of the longest segment and episode of Last Week Tonight yet. Government surveillance in America is a frightening and uncomfortable subject, but one that John Oliver handles with grace.
Section 215 is overseen by a secret intelligence court known as the FISA Court, and they've interpreted it to mean the government could basically collect and store phone records for every American, the vast majority of whom, of course, have no connection to terrorism.
He focuses primarily on detailing what programs like the Patriot Act allow the US government to do, as well as Edward Snowden's leaking of the information that revealed the scope of the government's reach, while also touching on the public's surprisingly blasé attitude about surveillance. Half of the piece's runtime is devoted to Oliver traveling to Russia to interview Snowden himself, which made headlines around the world.
How much do you miss America?
You know, my country is something that travels with me, you know. It's not just a geography.
Well, that's already a way too complicated answer. The answer is, I miss it a lot. It's the greatest country in the world.
Despite being a comedian first, Oliver managed to ask plenty of tough questions of Snowden, while still maintaining an air of humor.
EO 12333 is what the NSA uses when the other authorities aren't aggressive enough or they're not catching as much as they'd like. For example...
Okay, so how are they going to see my dick? I'm only concerned about my penis.
Number 2. Brexit referendum.
The United Kingdom, birthplace of the Beatles, and yet very much the world's Ringo.
Brexit, the nickname for the June 2016 referendum, in which voters decided whether the UK should exit from the European Union, has been controversial and financially tumultuous.
Brexit doesn't sound scary, it just sounds like a shitty granola bar you buy at the airport. Hey, this tastes like a preserved owl pellet, f*** it, I'm going to Cinnabon. You push me into it.
John Oliver covered his homeland's referendum before it was actually held. In the segment, he explains the basics of what the European Union is, identifies its proponents, examines their arguments, and points out their party's history of xenophobia and nationalism.
Just hold up, not British enough to be in our parliament. He's talking about a British citizen who was born in London and raised in Hampshire. How is that not British enough?
Like many other Last Week Tonight stories, this one wraps up with a musical number, this time in the form of a plea for Britain to remain in the EU, while still, you know, kind of insulting it, as sung by a barbershop quartet.
European Union, tally-ho, you f***ing pricks.
It's not often that you hear young boys belting curse-laden songs about economic unions.
The European Union, even though we must admit we would all be batshit crazy if we vote for leaving it.
Before we get to our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions.
Our main story tonight is income inequality. A good way to figure out which side of it you're on is whether you're currently paying for HBO or stealing it. There are certainly better voices than mine to speak on behalf of Puerto Rico. Luckily, there is someone with Puerto Rican parents and an amazing voice, and he is here tonight. Please welcome the great Lin-Manuel Miranda. Question number 1. What does the continued existence of the Miss America pageant say about how women are viewed in America? You have 20 seconds. Go.
Beginning with the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848 that spurred first wave feminism, the perception of women in America has always been complex and fluid.
Number 1. Donald Trump.
Our main story tonight, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, is Donald Trump. And I say that knowing that every time his name is said out loud, he has a shattering orgasm.
While John Oliver and Last Week Tonight have tackled Donald Trump several times since its airing, this in-depth look at the then frontrunner for the Republican Party nomination for the US presidency is by far the most successful and the most biting.
Donald Trump views the truth like this lemur views the Supreme Court vacancy. I don't care about that in any way. Please f*** off, I have a banana.
Oliver debunks Trump's biggest selling points, his temperament, his honesty, and his success, none of which are as substantial as Trump claims, while also highlighting the candidate's dangerous inconsistency when it comes to policy.
I don't know David Duke. I don't believe I've ever met him. I'm pretty sure I didn't meet him, and I just don't know anything about him.
Really? That's your best answer there, because you definitely know who he is. Partly because you called him a bigot and a racist in the past.
However, what elevates this piece is when Oliver hits Trump somewhere he actually values, his name, which is also his brand. Oliver reveals that the alleged billionaire's family name used to be Drumpf, a moniker he feels to be much more befitting of the man himself.
And it may seem weird to bring up his ancestral name, but to quote Donald Trump, he should be proud of his heritage.
Do you agree with our list?
All right, I am judging you as a host next to him.
Which last week tonight moment is your favorite?
The other thing that happens down at the shore, chlamydia. Just a medically astounding rate of chlamydia.
For more top 10s published tonight and last week, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.
Good night!